Jide, it's great to have you on the show today, and maybe you can just wrap it up for us. As I mentioned, it seems the market is closing the week on a very positive note.
Yes, it is. It ended the week, today it closed at 0.92 to end the week. The market closed 1.12% week on week. Of course, we must understand that again, that we had a very shortened week because of the public holiday. We had about only 3 trading days in this week. As you mentioned, the market showed strong performance week on week, 1.12, led by the banking stocks essentially, and by the highly capitalized Dangote Cement PLC.
All right, I guess one disappointment this week, at least to some, is that we didn't see numbers from Access Bank and GT Bank. To what extent would you say that had a bearing on trading this week?
Well, it did, but it deals specifically particularly for GT Bank. For Access Bank, the market still, maybe they're still confident about Access Bank numbers. So Access Bank still closed on a positive note week on week. But for GT Bank, they said that the price kind of dropped today because the market doesn't really know what's happening. GT Bank is not known to have this kind of behavior. Is known to have to always release its numbers on time. So I think the market is punishing GT Bank. But for the overall market performance, I don't think it did affect market sentiment, because you just see people. I just mentioned earlier on that there were a lot of volumes traded on the bows, and this volume trade was led by the banking stocks, which for the 3 days were led by the banking stocks, particularly First Bank and Zenith Bank, and of course with Dangote Cement. So for sectors, for stock specific, the market is kind of punishing GT Bank, looking less on Access Bank, more favorable to it. On the whole, non-release of those results, though not good for us, because we hope there's no problem with GT Bank and Access Bank, but it didn't really affect market sentiment really.
Well, as you said, the market pricing that stock slightly lower today, but it's very important to clarify that these 2 banks are one of the only 2 actually that will be releasing audited numbers. All the others are simply interim results. But first of all, I want to hear more about volumes this week. I heard that volumes were pretty strong, particularly today. We saw very heavy transactions in Zenith Bank.
Yes. Yeah, the volumes are strong. As I mentioned, if you look at the bank's results, the quarterly results being released both for Q1 and Q2, they showed very strong recovery, very strong numbers from the previous year comparable period. And obviously, what will be driving the share, what will be driving market reaction? Of course, we cannot situate it in the position of result relief. We believe that the results released so far, the market has captured and has been priced into current price. But to end the year, these numbers are very strong numbers. These companies have strong fundamentals, particularly for First Bank, for Zenith Bank, and and to end the year, I just see a lot of activities coming into these sectors, into this particular stock, when people are looking at the fundamentals. And to end the year, these companies offer fantastic opportunities on upside potential, both capital appreciation and dividend.
All right, let's move on to another company making news this week, Flour Mills. They of course reported very positive first quarter numbers after some weaker than expected full year numbers. But interestingly, we see that the share price is flat at 52 again today. What's going on there? Do you consider this as the market dismissing that number, because the stock is really trading close to a year low?
The market is I think the stock price hasn't fully reflected the full information, in the sense that if you look at the numbers declared, as you said, they're good numbers. It's numbers that should ordinarily make people positive about the company going forward, given from where they're coming. But if you look at the other scenarios, people are factoring in other variables to it. If you look at international prices of crops, which are major raw materials, in Flour Mills operations now on their upside. For price of wheat, we have a lot of weather-related crises in the wheat-producing regions in the world. Price of sugar as well in Brazil, due to weather-related conditions. So, people are just thinking that these numbers are not good enough. Maybe when we see the Q2 result, we'll be able to factor that in and give the company the correct pricing. And again, you must understand again that this week is just very short.
Right.
Maybe the market hasn't really reflected on that. Maybe for next week, I think there will be some kind of reaction. But as I said, the downside risk to that reaction will be that given overall market conditions in the major input in its production processes, I think the market may just factor that in not to.
All right, fair points about the
short
trading session this week. Okay, let's move on to next week and your thoughts about that. What's the outlook for the market next week?
Yeah, the outlook for me next week will remain positive to end the week. Of course, we'll have some pockets of capital appreciation. I say that because sort of some form of profit taking. I say that because if you look at the stock market, over 26 stocks have beat the inflation rate. Over 20 stocks have done fantastically well in the region of 20%, 30% up and above. I believe there will be still some profit taking, but I still see some strong performance in the banking stocks. I still see some strong performance in the building material subsector, because we hear that the government is about to release the capital expenditure vote for 2012, and of course with the fantastic plan of Dangote Cement, planning to increase capacity about 21.35 metric ton from 8.8 in 2011 in 2012. You have about them claiming that they can claim about 70% of the market share, and you can see that in Lafarge Aramco. You can see that in Dangote Cement results this week, and so I expect that positive sentiment to carry on to the next week.
All right.
For me, the banking stock and the building material subsector.
Okay, let's be a bit more specific. You just mentioned Dangote Cement. Beyond that, which other
Lafarge
stocks
Aramco.
are
I think First Bank will still do well. First Bank will still do well. Access Bank will do well. I'm positive about Access Bank's numbers. Zenith Bank will do well as well. Okay. And those are my picks. Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, Jide. Enjoy the weekend.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on CNBC Africa.